Good morning, everyone. My name is Vikash and I'll be hosting today's webinar. Welcome to IBG's webinar on intellectual property rights. A little bit more about IBG because I can see some members are not, some people who have joined are non-members. So IBG is India Business Group. We are a chamber of commerce, but we are a lot of fun chamber of commerce. Okay, so we are more like family. The entire focus of the chamber is to help our members get business nationally as well as internationally. We have tie-ups with several chamber of commerces within India as well as abroad. Soon you guys will come to know a little bit more about IBG. Girish, if I could request you to play the introductory video, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to India Business Group. We are a modern chamber of commerce focused on mentoring and supporting Indian businesses to help them grow globally. IBG was founded by Mr. Vikash Mittersain, CMD of Nazara Technologies and the Honorary Consul General of the Republic of Mali, headed by CEO Ms. Priya Pansare and managed by Girish Bhatija, Siddhi Jadhav and Sujata Pawar. IBG has a network of 80,000 associations with over 1,000 active members. It also organizes sector-specific events for their members pertaining to sectors like real estate, entertainment, film and media, healthcare and pharmaceutical, HR, learning and development, travel, tourism and hospitality, banking and finance, manufacturing and retail, advertising and marketing, logistics and infrastructure, and IT. We invite Consul General and Trade Commissioners to explore trade opportunities between countries. We help connect our members with consulates to explore their business on an international arena. Ladies and gentlemen, we've signed MOU with around 50 Chamber of Commerce across the globe. We're also doing sector meetings for our members to help find the right connect. We do conduct B2B meetings with domestic as well as international chambers, which help your business grow with bounds and heaps. So, what are you waiting for? Welcome to our most wondrous world of IBG, India Business Group. Thank you.
All right, so now that you guys know a little bit more about IBG, I would like to quickly invite our founder president, Mr. Vikash Mittersain, just to say hi to you guys. He'll speak later. Vikash?
Hi there. Let me absorb what is being said today and then I'll come in again at the end of it.
Certainly, certainly. Also, we have with us our CEO, Ms. Priya Pansare. Priya, if you could say a few words, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Special welcome to all the IBG members and to all the lovely guests who have joined us today. This is the most awaited session of the month. We've been waiting for IPR session since months and we were preparing for it, but finally we could have it today with us. So thank you, Mr. Rawal, for accepting this and giving us this opportunity to all our members to attend your session. Thank you. And as you saw that IBG is of course a chamber of commerce, we have tied up with around 75 countries. We have signed MOUs with them. There are a lot of collaborations. There are B2B meetings happening regularly with these chambers, in between members, in IBG. There are a lot of activities. So the people who have not joined us still, be part of our inner circle and you'll get to experience what really IBG is. Thank you, Deepesh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Priya. And also I would like to thank our pillars of IBG, Siddhi, Girish and Sujata. A big thank you for everything you do for us members. And before we start today's session, a few rules. I'll request everyone to keep your audio on mute, keep your videos off so that there's no disturbance. Only the speakers will keep their videos on. If you have any questions for our speaker, kindly type the questions in the chat box below. And I will ask the questions later. We will have a Q&A round. And people who are here for the first time, please give us your email address and mobile number in the chat box so we can update you with the forthcoming events that are happening at IBG. All right. So having said that, I'm going to introduce our today's speaker. It's an absolute pleasure for me to introduce Mr. Nayan Rawal, who is an IP attorney, and he's going to share his 23 years of experience in this field. I mean, his accomplishments and accolades are huge. I'm not going to read through all of that, but he's doing work in the field of IP, and he has filed more than 800 trademark applications, and he has prospected more than 50 patents in subjects of pharmaceutical and medical, electronics, IT, mechanical, and protected more than 50 designs and more than 50 copyrights. So it was an absolute pleasure for us to have you, Mr. Rawal. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Dipesh, for a lovely introduction. And good morning to all of you. And at the outset, I thank IBG and the team members for giving me this opportunity to speak on a subject which is rarely discussed. And what I am going to do is, I'm not going to educate you on this subject. What I am trying to do is just share my experience about this subject, which I am learning since last 23 years, and I'm still learning it. But whatever I have experienced about this subject for last 23 years is something which I want to put before you as to why and how and what about this subject. I'll just share the screen. Harshil, can you help me? Desktop. Just 2 minutes. It's just opening. Yeah. So what I am trying to deal with is why intellectual property matters. What exactly is intellectual property? The types of intellectual property, innovation and intellectual property strategy, commercialization, and the subject and the theme of this presentation is IP and you. According to me, everybody is connected with this subject matter, and everybody can really leverage the growth of their own skills through this concept of intellectual property. It could be an individual, it could be an organization, it could be even a university. That's what my experience is for last 23 years, that everybody is connected with intellectual property, and everybody can really leverage their skills, create intellectual property for the growth and vis-a-vis help wherever they are, whether they are in organization, whether they are in university, whether they are connected with the economy, whether they are connected with country. That's what the whole concept is about, IP and you. And that's what I have experienced, and I have a lot of case studies which help me to understand that how individual is connected with intellectual property, how an organization is connected with intellectual property, and how an education institution like university is connected with intellectual property. This person is somebody who has inspired me like anything to understand about intellectual property. And this, what he said about, is something the trigger point of intellectual property. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. It's very simple. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Everybody has knowledge. But when you apply imagination to knowledge, you create something which is called an intangible property. And that intangible property could be a very unique one. That is something which can be leveraged for the growth and prospect of an organization or an individual or anybody else. Now, why intellectual property has become important? Now, we are in the age of a conceptual economy where information integration and insight is something which works. Everybody, I'll tell you one thing, that 1995, the year 1995 was a path-breaking year of a lot of people in this world, a lot of countries in this world, and a lot of economies in this world, and a lot of organizations in this world. Because it is the year when the internet started in this world. And internet brought a lot of revolution in the whole activities and the life of human being. And that is where information became a raw material. Today, information has become a commodity. It has become an important raw material. So if you have information, if you integrate with the knowledge, and if you integrate this information knowledge into an insight, you can create something what is called as a need of the hour. That need could be for a human help. That need could be for the business. That need could be for the prospect of an education also. So that is what is all about information integration and insight. Companies who innovate and create new business practices. Like there are lots of new sectors coming up. Like I qualified somewhere in 87. So during 87 to 2000, I have never heard about something called service sector. I have never heard about something called biotechnology and industry. I have never heard about healthcare as a sector. Today we have so many new sectors. Even something word like aggregator, that was not existing in those years. Aggregator is just existing since last say 5-10 years. So this is what is happening. Companies who innovate can create new business practices. And when you innovate and you create new business practices, it attracts something which is an integral part, and that is intellectual property. It is more about differentiation versus commoditization. Like if you have a differentiation and if you create differentiation, it will link along. And that is what is going to help to an organization. The sustainability of an organization depends on how much it is able to do the differentiation in their products or services which they offer. Like Nokia. Nokia was one of the best mobile company from 95 till 2005. But after 2005, it has to really go away because it did not understand that his product has slowly, gradually become a commodity. And when your product becomes a commodity, it becomes a very common thing. It does not create any differentiation, and it is very difficult to survive on that. So this is a big formula which is given by a lot of people who are practicing intellectual property on the economic side, that your product or your services should have differentiation. And until and unless you do not have a differentiation, you cannot create intellectual property. And if you cannot create intellectual property, it is very difficult to survive. What is intellectual property? It means legal right resulted from intellectual activity in the industrial, scientific, literary, and artistic field. It's a cluster of legally recognized rights covered with innovation and creativity. It's the work of mind as against physical product, land, and other buildings. Like I'll give you an example. If you have seen a Bisleri bottle is a very common bottle. But if you see the products involved into it, nobody thought that we'll have to buy water one day. Drinking water is something which is a basic need which it should be available very freely. Nobody thought that we'll be having water as a commodity or a product. Now the water which is given in the Bisleri bottle, is it a common water? It's a treated water. So there is something called a technology part of it. The shape of the bottles which are available are all different. That's where the design comes into the picture. And will you buy a Bisleri bottle or a mineral bottle water without any brand on it? If there is no brand, it's just a plain bottle, you will not have a trust in that. You will not trust it as a product. And that is what is where you say that a work of a mind against the product. So somebody had really applied his imagination on the knowledge we had, and he has created a water as a product. That's what the really crux of the intellectual property. The term describes ideas, invention, technologies, artwork, music, literature. They are intangible when they are created, but become valuable in tangible form of a product. That's what the example of mineral water or Bisleri water proves about it. Now, before I start this slide, I would like to bring to the attention of everyone present here that this concept is something which is given by India to the whole world. The whole world nurtured it, and now we are trying to realize it. But intellectual property is something which is given by India to the whole world. It was first born in India. And that's what, when I deal with this subject and this particular slide, I'll give you each an example which will prove that intellectual property is something which is born in India. This is the definition given by an international authority called World Intellectual Property Organization, which is very shortly known as WIPO. It's an intergovernmental agency situated in Geneva who actually administers the concept of intellectual property for the purpose of individual rights, for the purpose of business rights, and various other economic rights. So they define what is intellectual property. This is a formal definition of intellectual property. Now, intellectual property is divided into two parts. One is industrial property, and the other is only copyrights and related rights. I'll come to the copyrights and related rights at a later point of it, but let's see what is industrial property all about. it talks that if you have an invention, it qualifies for an intellectual property in the form of patent. Now, invention. So invention and innovation has a huge difference. There's a huge difference in the sense innovation could be anything new, but invention cannot be anything new. Invention has to be an eligible innovation. In the sense, eligible innovation means it is something which is not heard about. And that is where everything comes in the form of a patent. Now, in India, we have a myth that patent means only pharmaceutical industry. But that's a wrong myth. Invention can be done by anybody in this world. Anybody, even an individual can do an invention. If you can go and Google the story of one person called Mallesham, Chintakundli Mallesham. He's not even a 4th standard pass, and he has created invention and he's having a patent. So it is something something very different. Now, I, as a patent attorney or patent lawyer, I am more on the patent side on the IPR. IPR is a big ocean, and within that big ocean, there are small ocean. So one of the ocean which I handle it at the initial stage of my practice is patents. And when I was handling patents, I'm not a technical person. I'm not a science graduate. So I used to study everything about chemistry as to how do you interpret patents in the pharmaceutical industry. And I was surprised to find that whole study of pharmacology, the whole study of pharmacology is based on Rigved. And I was surprised more further than when we really study about the patents that all the multinational companies in US and Europe, when they have their R&D department, they have all the important scriptures of Rigved in their library for doing research and development. And that is where I feel this was given. Intellectual property is something which is given by India to the whole world. In the ancient years of the India, weaving was a very prominent activity in the South. Everybody has to learn weaving. Weaving was a very common activity in the South. In tribes, tribunal, or community, whatever you call, everybody has to learn weaving, whether a boy or a girl, but he has to learn weaving. But what was important was that they would not teach weaving to the daughters, for the simple reason that the daughter will get married and she will take the knowledge outside the community or outside the family. And that is what not they wanted it. Now that is what is proving that intellectual property is something which is given by India to the whole world. The next kind of property is design. If you have some configuration or pattern in your product, you can protect it as a design. If you have a brand, you can protect it as a trademark. Now, trademark was actually born in India. 3,000 years ago, there were scriptures and structures which were actually sent by the Indian artistic people to Middle East for the purpose of kingdoms. And they used to, after creating those sculptures or say scriptures, they used to sign on that. And that signature was considered as a trademark, that this has come from India. So that is what is more important. And it is proved that trademark is something which is born in India 3,000 years ago. So intellectual property is something which is been given by India to the whole world. Next is geographical indications. There are certain kinds of appellations of origins which belong to a particular region. And that appellations and origins do have differentiation kind of characteristics. Like I'll tell you, Darjeeling tea is the best example for it. Darjeeling tea is something which is actually only grown in Darjeeling. You cannot cultivate Darjeeling tea in Mumbai or Konkan or any other part of it. So that Darjeeling tea had certain flavors or certain smell or fragrance, whatever you said, that can be brought only that. So Darjeeling tea is also can be a protected intellectual property. Then we have trade secrets. The most important trade secret in the whole world, the corporate secret, is the Coca-Cola formula. They never patented it, protected it. It is still a secret till date today, after even 100 years of that business and the successful business. So that's also one of the important intellectual property. Then we have integrated circuit, which is a chips, or you can say that they are chips and circuits, which are creating convergence of technology. Your mobile starts doing the function of computers. We have camera in mobiles. We have so many other things in mobile other than communication. So that is what is convergence of technology, and that happens through this integrated circuit. The whole economy of Taiwan is based on this intellectual property. Intellectual property has created an economy in the form of Taiwan's economy only works on integrated circuit, intellectual property. Then we have copyrights and related rights. One of the best example of I can give you is the content. All types of contents are covered here. Copyrights and related rights considers any kind of original work. It has to be an original work in the form of literary, it could be literature, in the form of dramatic work, in the form of artistic work. It would even include photography, in the form of music, in the form of a film or a cinematographic film. Original work, that is all protected as copyrights and related rights. The business model of T series is based on only this intellectual property. T series is actually doing complete business only on a model which he has built on on an intellectual property, which is copyrights and related rights. The other example I could give is the Harry Potter. Harry Potter, the author of the Harry Potter was a divorcee, and she didn't get any much of the kind of an economic help from her husband. So she has to survive him, herself, and her son. Her son's name is Harry, and that is why all the novels of Harry Potter or series of stories of Harry Potter are known as Harry Potter. Now there are at least, I think so, 8 series of Harry Potter which she created. She had a flair for writing from her childhood, so she took up that as a profession, and today she is employing almost 150 IP lawyers worldwide to only protect her licensing right in her literary work called Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is actually translated into 15 foreign language, including Martini. Now that's what the wonder of copyrights and related rights. So we have at least 14 to 15 national languages in this country, but this is the most ignored and really not at all paid attention as an intellectual property in India. We can create huge difference by using only copyright and related rights. Like somebody was as a content developer. Now content developers can use this and build a business model on that and can really make wonders as far as the copyright and related right is concerned in his business or creating his own network. Innovation is an invisible infrastructure for intellectual property. This is something like, if you do not have innovation, you cannot create intellectual property. Now, there are lots of misconceptions about innovation. Innovation means you have to have a big R&D. Innovation means you have to have big resources. Innovation means you need to have big money. That's a misconception. Now, the next slide, which I am going to show, will show that they never had a huge R&D, but they created wonder out of what they had. And that's what is about misconception about innovation. That innovation does not. What you require as a successful innovator is you need to learn and recombine. Business model innovation and not just technology. Like Apple or Microsoft, they have never invented themselves any technology. They have found out people who had invented technology. They created strategy. They created business method, model or innovation behind around that technology, and they have just marketed the technology. So that is what is all about innovation. Like Joseph's Contest says very nicely that innovation in a broader sense comes from new combination on all the dimensions of a business system. Now my next slide will show this. Amazon, Swiggy, Zomato, and Oyo. Let me tell you one thing. Does Amazon holds or manufactures anything in this world? Does Amazon manufacture personally anything in this country? But it is selling everything what you require on the site. Does Swiggy owns any restaurants? But no restaurants business can be thought about today without Swiggy. Does Zomato owns any restaurant or hotel? No. Does Oyo owns any 5-star property? No. But still, all these 4 brands, all these 4 intellectual property are very well known in hotel, restaurant, and online e-commerce business. Without these 4 names, you cannot even think about that business today. That is what they have created. Now, Zomato is actually coming out with a public issue of more than 8,000 crore. Now, that's what the valuation is got. Now, did they had huge R&D? Did they had huge resources? Did they started small and they started something which is called differentiation. They knew where is the differentiation, and they created differentiation in their businesses, and that is what is the intellectual property. And that intellectual property they have leveraged for creating a net worth of a huge amount. Now, if you see the valuation of all these 4 companies, it could be really mind-boggling. commercialization in the process, bringing new IP to the market for creating edge. Now, IP commercialization is more important. Like if you talk about IP, if you ask for a lawyer to speak, he will talk about protection. I'm not talking anything about protection today, and that is what I am not going to do also. I am going to talk something what is required before protection and what is required after protection, and what you should protect. That is something which is very important in understanding IP commercialization. IP commercialization is nothing but a process of bringing new IP to the market for creating competitive edge. Now that is what exactly Dell Computers done. Let's see the Dell Computers study. Before Dell, the computers were sold all over the world, including US, in the form of that whatever company manufactures, it was sold to the people. You never had a choice of what configuration or what particular kind of arrangement you wanted in your computer systems. Either you are given 286 or 486 in those days, or you were given this motherboard, or you were given this processor. You had never a choice to select something what you require in your computer systems. So Dell identified that what has been sold is only what people have. He said this business is more of a business centric rather than customer centric. So he thought of creating a customer centric business. So he had created a system. That system was something like this, that if you go to a particular business mall, like suppose if you go to a Chroma, which is a kind of electronic mall, in electronic mall, there will be a particular desk, which is called as a Dell's desk. You go and tell him that you wanted this type of computers, you want this type of system, you want this type of system. The people or executives waiting for you will take down all the information, and within the fraction of minutes, this information is transferred to the manufacturing site of Dell. The manufacturing site will communicate back to the that particular desk that this is what is possible, this is what is possible, and we need to really give this. We can give all these things to customer except one or two or everything. Whatever is possible with that manufacturing facility, it is communicated back to the computer desk. That person is communicated within 5 minutes that this is what you will get it. And finally, the transaction happens, and within 48 hours of that transaction, the computer system is delivered personally at that person's house. Now that was something which is Dell created. He created a complete business model. He created a wall of 22 different kinds of intellectual property, including trademark, copyright, patent, business method, whatever he could protect, he created as a startup. And that's what the Dell made a difference in the complete desktop market or a laptop market, or completely you can see the hardware market was totally saw the revolution. It so happened that there was an established company called Digital Corporation in USA. They started facing huge competition because of this startup. And they had a huge problem. And by the time Dell grew as an SME, the compact brand or the Digital Corporation was in big trouble and it was making losses. Finally, Digital Corporation, after a few years, was acquired by Dell. And that's what the history is in US, that a startup or an SME acquired a big organization. And that's possible only if you have a strong differentiation in the form of intellectual property. And that is what is mattering in intellectual property. This is something which is most important when you are conceiving a business plan. If you're starting a new project, particularly for startups, identify the IP, secure the IP, register the IP, protect the IP, and exploit the IP for the growth and sustainability of the organization. This can be very well explained through a case study of Gillette. Before Gillette, nobody had brought twin blade technology in shaving industry. Gillette was somebody who actually did his a little bit of research and development, a homemade research and development on twin blade technology. And when he developed this prototype of twin blade technology, he had 6 models before him. And he never knew which is going to be successful in the market. And he never knew which to start with. So what he did, he protected all the 6 models or prototypes of twin blade technology. And he said, let's exploit the basic model or the minimum which I can do is the single twin blade technology. He exploited that. He protected all kinds of intellectual property. He also created a wall of almost 16 patents on all this product what he had, or the technology he developed for the twin blade technology. And what is important is that he applied IP strategy. The moment the first blade he launched on twin blade technology was successful, he was absolutely very intelligent that before the sale of first product, that is twin blade technology, before the sale of first design went down, he launched the second design. Before the sale of second goes down, he launched the third. And that is why we are having Mac 1, Mac 2, Mac 3, Mac 4. He didn't allow any competitor to come inside. And that was all because the wall he had created in the form of intellectual property. So intellectual property is something which you should conceive in your business plan itself. IP isn't as a culture. You cannot have anything one fine morning. You need to have a lot of patience, and you need to really have a structured process for IP. Like we have something called create phase, the protect phase, the leverage phase. Now I'll go to the case studies straight away. I had conceived a concept of IP and U. So that U includes the individual, the corporate, and the university. And let's understand how this has helped. Jim Fraser's success story. Jim Fraser was a wildlife photographer in Australia in early 90s. And he used to face a lot of problem while doing the photography of wildlife, because you cannot expect animal to stay as it is where he was. And within the fraction of second, he has to capture the image of animal, insects, everybody. So he was finding it very difficult with the conventional cameras. So he himself started inventing how you can do this in the fraction of seconds. And that's where he developed focus lenses in this world. And he himself used that invented camera, and he put that camera lenses in the camera and started doing the photography fastest. Now, this is where he was really, he created a particular image technology for focus lenses. Now people came to know because he was becoming very famous in wildlife photography. So there was a photography and image conference which was held in USA, and he was invited that how are you doing this? So he explained his concept, but he never disclosed the technology to anybody. The organizers of technology or that conference were very much impressed with what he has shared with about the capturing the images. So they brought a proposal to him from a very big company called PanVision. That PanVision wants to really have a tie-up with you, and they have sent a one-page agreement to you. Now, Jim Fraser was very intelligent. He understood that this is the time when I need to protect my individual right and I need to protect my intellectual property. So he sent a 15-page agreement where he asked that, are you going to help me in protecting the intellectual property? Are you going to help me in commercializing this technology? Are you going to help me in this? And everything was agreed. And finally, he was paid more than $10 million as the first installment of royalty. And that's how the focus lens is exploited in the camera technology. Now that is where individual coming in picture as IP and U. In IP and U, how individual has really, now this is something which is very important for a startup, or in say even the SME to understand where he needs to like his intellectual property. If you feel you have an intellectual property, you need protection part at the early stage. You have to be very. There's a lot of threat of theft of intellectual property. I think that there's some threat or theft of the intellectual property. The second is Pliva and Pfizer case. Pliva was an struggling entity in Russia, and they had one patent on antibiotic. And the same antibiotic, Pfizer was doing a research to develop it. So Pfizer had a systematic approach to this technology. They had an approved budget for R&D. They had an approved budget for doing every activity, and they had a complete business plan where they will launch the product, and which year they will have a break even, and they will start earning about it. So that is where Pfizer had approved. Pfizer finance department was very skeptical about this product to be launched. So they were very scared about how do we go about before dispersing the money to R&D. So they themselves started studying about that technology as to what is this antibiotic going to do in that. And they stumbled upon the paper filed by Pliva. And they started learning about Pliva, how Pliva has marketed their product. And that is where they came to know that Pliva is a struggling entity and they have filed for insolvency. So they went back to the management of Pfizer and said that we can launch this product immediately, provided we have IP as a strategy. Here is a company which is actually filed for insolvency and he has already a patent on this particular antibiotic. So Pfizer's people flew to Croatia, met the promoters of Plivia. I said, what are you going to do with this patent? The promoter said, we don't know really. We do not have idea what to do with this patent because we have already filed for insolvency due to the operational reasons and losses which we have occurred. So Pfizer struck a deal with them and they signed a mutual benefit sharing agreement with Pliva and said that you be with us as far as this technology is concerned for next 3 years. You license this technology for 3 years. If we are successful, we'll buy this technology 3 years down the line. And Pfizer paid a huge amount of royalty to Pliva. And Pfizer launched that product. That product was very successful. After 3 years, they brought that. Not only that, Pfizer appointed Pliva as an technology partner for doing the research and development on antibiotics. And that product was azithromycin. Azithromycin only as a product has a sales of almost $1 billion only for Pfizer. Now, what happened to Pfizer is very obvious because Pfizer is a very strong company. What happened to Pliva is something which is
Mr. Rawal,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry we are running out of time.
Yeah.
We'll have to wind up, otherwise we'll get no time for question and answer. So
Okay.
finish in 1 minute, so we'll go for Q&A.
Fine. Then remaining cases I can take it in the question answer.
All right. Thank you. All right. So thank you so much for throwing light on the most important point, which is IP. And I'm really surprised to know that it was started in India and we are the ones who are using it the least. So, so thanks for giving some amazing examples and case studies. And Dell, what you talked about, I used to work in US and I used to order Dell computers. And I still remember this morning, if I place an order, customized order for 20 laptops, day after tomorrow afternoon, they would land in United States in Boston and the label of the box would say made in Malaysia. So God knows how they handled all this, but it's amazing. And I'm sure all this is because of the IP that they protected. So guys, if anyone has any questions, please write the questions in the chat box so I can ask those questions. We don't have much time. So one person has asked a very interesting question. Mr. Rawal, another Indian author creating character Hari Puttar would be infringing Harry Potter?
Hari Puttar is actually something, Hari Puttar is actually out of Harry Potter. So if he is using it as a trademark, yes, it can be an infringement.
Okay, interesting. Is IPR a virtual monopoly for the owner?
Yeah, it is a virtual monopoly, but every IP system has a balancing of right. Like if you create a monopoly, the law and the system does not allow you to do it at cost. There is something called a balancing of right, like what the India is asking for an IP waiver, actually a balancing of right. Yes. But what I personally perceive is that you should not treat IPR as a monopoly, treat it as a property. And when you treat IPR as a property, it actually is much beneficial than the monopoly.
Okay. Another interesting question, can a building design be protected?
No, building
like somebody should not copy Burj Khalifa, right?
No, building designs cannot be protected because the design law says that you can protect the configuration and pattern in the form of design which are applied to products. Now, building is not considered as product. But yes, the plan and it is not that there is no IPR. The plan and structure or industrial drawing of that particular building can be protected as a copyright. So industrial drawings can be protected as a product in the form of copyright.
All right. So we can technically just copy Burj Khalifa and build it in Bombay here.
You are not protected as copyright. If you are protected as copyright, you cannot do that.
We will not call it Burj Khalifa. We call it Burj Mumbaiya.
The question is not the brand. The question is on the design.
Okay. Mr. Rawal, how many years does an IP of a song become public domain?
See, copyright exists for 60 years or the death of the author, whichever is later. Yeah. So everything has everything has a life. 60 years or the death of the author. Like music companies can company for a particular song for 60 years or the death of the author. Now author in the music in the production company or the publishing company.
Okay. Secondly, if I use a song in my film, up to how much secondage for free?
There's nothing free in the world.
Yusuf, don't copy, okay? Please throw light on vaccine IP conflict with Government of India.
There's no conflict in vaccine IP. I'll tell you very frankly. What is happening is that there are patents protected. The first thing I want to tell you, one important information with the Indians don't know, that there are two people who have a huge successful in the COVID vaccine. One is the Moderna and one is the AstraZeneca. Now, both of them have universally declared that they are not going to enforce their patent right for next 2 years. So where is the question of patent dispute or where is the question of IP waiver? See, what is the issue in vaccine is the scaling of the manufacturing of vaccine and not the IP. It's not that, because they themselves were told, okay, we are not going to enforce the patent rights for this vaccine for next 2 years. So the 2 years they have given you the complete monitoring period that do whatever you want.
All right. So another interesting question. The question is framed, and I'm going to add something to it. How to get to know this medical device patent is over and my work so that we can copy?
See, if they have registered the patent, that patent is valid for only 20 years. So 20 years is over for that device, you can copy it because that becomes something in public domain. Then it does not have any protection.
All right. So guys, questions are flowing in, but we are absolutely short of time. I'm very sorry that we have to end this, but before ending, I would like to quickly invite our founder president, Mr. Vikash Mittersain, to say a few or a lot of words. Why few?
Thank you. Thank you. I'll limit it to a few words. So I am a complete believer in IP, patenting, and all things involved in that. Unfortunately, in India, we are far behind most other countries, Western and especially USA, in trying to patent our products. Many of our companies have lost their brands that they have produced and marketed for 50 years because they did not know about patenting. They did not know about branding it or registering the brand. And just to give you an example, and not just Indian, France started and was marketing champagne. Now, this word champagne was meant for a particular area in France. The wine produced in a particular area in France. The whole world was using it. So they went, about 10 years back, they went and registered that brand as only wine, which is sparkling wine, which is produced in the Champagne area of France. So these are very finer points that happen when you don't know the subject. Every person in business, especially if they are marketing services or products, must be fully aware and on top of this. It's very important for your company, your product, and the longevity of your brand. So I am not giving any gyan. This has already come from Mr. Nayan. But I love the subject. That's why I'm speaking a bit about it. Mr. Nayan Rawal, can you give our members some references and books so they can broaden their knowledge if they are interested?
Why not?
Maybe you can send it.
There is a site called wipo.org.
Okay.
I am navigating for last 20 years. Still, I have not completed it.
Wow.
Everything you ask, anything about IP, and those answers are available. wipo.org. That's a wonderful organization administrating IP all over the world. So wipo.org, wipo.org. You go and you will find everything about IP there.
Good. So,
I started my learning from that site only.
Okay, so
I have done as many as 10 different courses still I am doing and learning from WIPO.
Very good, very good. So our members can note this. Maybe our team can send it out. So thanks a lot for this, Dipesh. Thanks a lot. I think it's a very interesting topic today. I was completely absorbed, lost track of time. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Rawal, there are a few people who are asking a little bit more about the Stanford case study. So if you could just share it with Girish, and
Yes,
whoever
yes.
wants it can just take
Yes,
it for
yes.
Girish. We would love to hear about all the case studies that you wanted to discuss.
Yes, 100%.
I'm very sorry we had to cut short.
No, not at all. Stanford University has created history, and it has created an organization which is called Cisco. Cisco is existing because of Stanford University.
Oh my God. Awesome. All right. So thank you guys for attending today's session, and a big thank you to Mr. Rawal for giving us
Not at all.
his
My
time
pleasure.
and so much information. It was a pleasure hosting you, Mr. Rawal. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Stay
much.
safe, guys. Have a nice day.